Isn't this America? Or is this America all a lie?
Of the freedom of speech, somewhere I read. Of the freedom of press, somewhere I read. That the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
How can I pledge allegiance to a country built on lies? Or raise my children to believe they're equal in its eyes? My leaders are assassinated for speaking their mind. So justice never tilts my way. I thought that she was blind. Isn't this America? Or is this America all a lie?
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop.
I am Denise Tapina-Reed, co-host of At the Round Table with MAMLEO, a Massachusetts Association Minority Law Enforcement Officers Incorporated broadcast, and we greatly appreciate our sponsors. John B. Cruz Construction Company, 1 John Elliott Square, Roxbury, Massachusetts, third generation family owned.
True to what you said on paper.
I wish that I could freely dream and be judged from within, hunted by a power that cannot see past my skin. My views are viewed as ignorant, my truth always denied. My history is shrouded in a spider web of lies. Isn't this America? Or is this America all a lie?
Of the freedom of speech, somewhere I read. Of the freedom of press, somewhere I read.
Are we live? We are live. Good morning and welcome to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. I want to thank our sponsor, The Money Store. Who says money doesn't grow on trees? Well, it does. And if you need a mortgage, give branch manager Carl Holbrook a call at area code 508-345-4276. That's 508-345-4276. As a matter of fact, our sponsor, Carl Holbrook, will be in this morning in our 8 o'clock hour to talk about the effects of the interest rate cut that the Feds just gave a whole 0.5% on the mortgage rates, and if that's is just the right time to buy. You know, if you've been hesitating, if you're on the fence, you know, that's a little bit help. Every little bit helps. You know, if you're looking at getting a mortgage and if the rate is getting down a little bit, you definitely want to tune in for that in 8 o'clock hour, and people can guide you through this. It's a very complicated and a very expensive endeavor. Home ownership is not as easy as we think it is. Sometimes just getting through the process might be the easiest part of it, but actually taking ownership is a lot to do with that. I want to say a hearty good morning to Mr. and Mrs. Harry Scales. Good morning to Brother Jamal. Hope he made it back on this side of town. Good morning, Brother Cliff. Good morning, Brother Dicker. And good morning to my two compadres who are coming in here on the run. We have the Rhodes Scholar is in play, and Dr. Bradley is with us. Yes, folks, they're not blurred images. These are my brothers from another to my right coming in here. Calm down. We got you. You guys are funny. You know, we start at 7 here. You know, it's not 7. Good morning. Good morning, my brothers. While they're getting set up, Pastor Hobbs. Good morning, brother. Pastor Hobbs. How are you, sir?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you.
Good. If you wouldn't mind, sir, while these brothers, and pray for these brothers.
Please, we need it. Oh, at least I know I need it.
Prayer is always good.
It is.
Amen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Father God, we do bless you. We give you praise for this day that you've made, and we rejoice in it. We're grateful for another opportunity to be mature, that you live, breathe, move, and have your being. So we ask you just to bless us, forgive us, fill us with your presence, be glorified in it through all that's said and done in this broadcast. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. And if you want to join us in the conversation this morning, give us a call at area code 617-282-0685.
Is it live or Memorex? We're live this morning. The recording was about to take over there. Good morning. Welcome to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. I'm your host, Larry Ellison. And here, engineering as usual, Pastor Hobbs. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning. You know, I tell you, that spiritual inspiration I always get when I come in here a few minutes ahead. No, really, I tell you need that coming in here early in the morning, something to wake you up, shock your system into why am I up at 6 o'clock in the morning, right? This is why I'm up. So good morning, folks. Again, you're listening to At the Round Table with MAMLEO, the calling number.
Bridgeforth. Dr. Bradley was like, what we doing?
Good morning, Brother Bridgeforth. Good morning. You're listening to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. We are live in studio. Perfect cue. Good morning, Pastor Hobbs. Folks,
Good morning.
well, we can tell fall is in the air. It's a little nippy out there this morning.
It is.
We are going. But we want to thank our sponsor, the Money Store. Let me get it here, folks. Bear with me a second here this morning. We had a little technical difficulty here, but we are live in studio. It is countdown to the election. You know, we're about 12 days out from the presidential election, and it looks like it's going to be a squeaker. I can't understand why, you know, due to the unseriousness of the Republican candidate, but here we go. And we're going to get into that this morning. If you want to give us a call here and give us your comments, your feedback, the calling number here is 617-282-0685. 617-282-0685 is the number here. You are listening to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. Yeah, like I said, a lot going on, folks. Have you voted? I know there's early voting taking place here in the Commonwealth. Have you voted? Do you plan to vote? Are you going to just sit on the sideline and sit this out? You know, I hear some of the foolishness that people are saying, well, I can't vote for women, or Donald Trump has done all this for people that look like me. Donald Trump has done nothing but discriminate against people that look like me. You know, going back to when he and his dad wouldn't even rent to people like you and me, and I'm sure there's not many people staying in Trump Tower that look like you and me, and I'm sure there's no one that works for him that looks like you and me, and if it does, at a sub-level position, no one in any real authority in that role. So I always tell people, be careful what you wish for, because you may get it. And if you get Donald Trump back in it for another 4 years, you know, you have no one to blame but yourself, because he's not trying to hide it. He's putting the ball. Oh, you got a lot of feedback in there, Pastor.
Something's going on here.
Yeah, a lot of background noise there. But I always say,
All new mics?
That's why.
oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah, upgrade new microphones. A lot of background noise there. So let's do.
Yeah, because there's another microphone that's already open.
Was that what?
Yeah. That's open to, yeah. So is this one.
I got you.
Okay.
That Pastor Hobbs has had a.
I thought I was being helpful, that's all.
No. He appreciate that. There we go. You know, we just getting together. So, gentlemen, we are in somewhat of the final stretch for this presidential election.
It is the final countdown.
And people are still, like I said, this isn't, to me, this election is not about whether you're a Democrat or Republican or an independent. It's really about, are you an American?
Yes.
And do you want this to remain America, or do you want this to turn into a dictatorship, an autocrat? And with no check and balance, where the Supreme Court, who has a final say, has already said we now in this country have kings, we have dictators, and that anything they do behind the seal of the President of the United States is constitutional and legal, right? And I think that would be somewhat
a safeguard if we had someone on the other side who was operating in a normal capacity in which most presidents operated, other than some like Nixon, but for the most part didn't feel like it was a license to steal or to commit crimes, right? And now we have someone who they're giving this power to, potentially, who has said, I'm going to be a dictator from day one. I can do whatever I want, and the president has unchecked power.
Well, brother, I think we're in the last days. If he should win, we're in the last days of our democracy.
Right. What is that saying you've said every time when the founder said that we have a democracy if
only if we can keep it. We have a representative republic if we can keep it. Benjamin Franklin said to an individual who was asking him a question when they came out of the convention in Philadelphia. But I think we are in the last days of our republic, representative republic, if this man should win, which my education tells me he's not going to win it. I think America in general is actually very center, maybe one tick to the left or one tick to the right, but they're not extreme. So I think the people you're seeing, both unfortunately, is people that look like us are behind him. I don't know if they're getting paid or what, but they're behind him, are pushing this thing. And they're going to vote for him. But we have to understand, as a people, as we actually watch this thing, as my father used to say to me, you can't remove the ingredients from a cake once it's baked.
Wow.
Think about that.
Wow.
All right?
I just thought about that. Like, sometimes, I put too much in there. You can't
remove it. And we're both cooks.
Yeah.
Once that ingredient goes into the pot, you can't take it out. All right. And so you got to know what you're getting before you put it in. And so you're going to either have one or two reactions. You're going to either throw it out, or you're going to continue to cook and taste it and actually and grin, hold your nose and eat it.
Right.
All right. And I think America's going to throw this out. I think America's going to throw this guy out.
Yeah. Because if they don't, they're sending a message that this is how we want to go. Yeah. And that somehow they have sold it as a bill of goods that we're only going to go after certain people. Those certain people become you, because Hitler, who this guy idolizes as a dictator, as an autocrat, that exterminated, millions of Jewish people for no reason other than being Jewish. That this person is saying that he said anyone who the media, if they speak against him, anyone who supports the other party, and not even just the other party, but anyone other than him, he's coming for you. I mean,
well, and I'm speaking as a black man who lived the first 10 to 12 years of his life in Jim Crow, under Jim Crow, in Augusta, Georgia, and knowing a lot about our history in America. When I hear, as a man of color, a black man with slave from slaves, descendants of slaves. Thank you. I'm looking for that word. When I hear that you're gonna turn the most powerful military in the history of the world, not in the world, but in the history of the world, against its people, I'm directly thinking about the brothers and sisters who died before I got here in places like Durham, Alabama, Montgomery, Durham, North Carolina, Birmingham, Alabama. I mean, all these different places that black people died because they were just trying to have their rights, trying to be recognized as citizens and respected. What he's saying to these people who some of them are supporting him, that I am going to turn the most powerful military in the world on you if you try to question me or try to ask for more rights than I'm willing to give you. And you get out and you protest about it, because the beauty, and as King said, the beauty about America, you have a right to protest for right. He's telling you, if you exercise that right to protest for right, I am going to come after you with the most powerful military in the history of the world.
And to that point, this isn't someone who we haven't already seen abuse this power, right? Where he had guardrails, right? There were people who understood that the military was not to be used against civilians in this country, right? It is to fight for the people in this country and not in this land, not against people protesting here, right? The military was utilized in emergencies, the National Guard, for instance, right? In an emergency to help the people here, right? But he had already asked his generals,
before that he wanted to shoot protesters in the Black Lives Matter, right? That to quell those things. So this is someone who already thinks in that way that no one should be able to object to his government. And I can't for the life of me understand what people thought was so spectacular about Donald Trump as a president. He raised the national debt. He's saying I alone can fix it. He raised the national debt by almost $8 trillion.
But see, Larry, you come to the table, as do I,
I do.
and as do the Rhodes Scholar and Pastor Hobbs.
Yeah.
We come to a table with a certain amount of sophistication on the issues. We already know the issues. But what if you are a high school grad and you're so busy just working and trying to live, and you're talking about debt and all that stuff? You don't understand that level. You don't understand how economy is. Because when people say to me, and I had the discussion with one of my students the other day, that under Donald Trump, for the first 2 years, things were good until COVID kicked in.
Right.
And my response to him was, son, the economy doesn't work that way. All right? When the president makes a decision, that has to reverberate through the economy.
Right.
It takes time for that to happen. So in short, Donald Trump was living from Obama's administration.
Right. He had said that.
It was giving him the
President
beauty.
Obama
Obama gave him a beautiful situation that George Bush had destroyed.
Right. It took 8 years to clean up that mess.
And now, which means that Biden and his administration has to live off of Donald Trump's situation, what he created. The mess he created.
Right.
So first of all, to me, character means more than a condition that we are currently experiencing.
Right.
But I'm coming to the table with a level of sophistication that a lot of people will not have.
Well, I think that people have somewhat. It may not be at the level of yourself, right? But they know, but they're putting a blind eye to it. That's the part that is.
And the question becomes why, brother?
Right, because you have tens of millions of people who are saying that they want this person back in there, right? That says a lot. And these are like a lot of people that stormed the Capitol January 6th, right? There were doctors. These were educated. They were law enforcement. They were from all segments of America. So these weren't just people who didn't know better.
But the question becomes, why would people like that storm the Capitol, knowing that they're actually fighting against a losing situation? Why would they do that on an individual who's, what power he has over them to force them to do that?
Cults do that, right? If you only eat McDonald's every day, you know what the likelihood the outcome is, right? It's not going to be healthy. Your diabetes is going to go up. You have a risk of a heart attack, right? So if you incorporate some other things, now you have some other choices, right? But if you're only getting your news from one source, like in this country, we didn't have a lot of selections, but there was a little, like when Fox News says fair and balanced, it's like, no, unbalanced, unfair. When you won't even tell the truth, like when the Vice President Harris was doing an interview with Brett Baer recently, and he was showing a bogus video of Trump because he was asked what Trump was saying about being a dictator and that he would do certain things on day one, and he was trying to make it seem like that's not what Donald Trump said. And she called him out. She said, no, that's not what it was. So the next day, he comes back on and he apologizes on another network, on another broadcast on the Fox News, and said, he blamed it on his staff. They put the wrong video out there. Well, he was listening to it. He had to know it was the wrong video because I know he does his homework. He's not having them play something that he hasn't already viewed and knows what the content is. But the damage was already done to make it seem like somehow she didn't know. So that's what I'm saying is you see this every day and you just memorialize this craziness that as being normal.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, he didn't expect her to call him on it.
Right.
Most of the time, people don't call them on it.
Right.
They kind of move right on with it, And in actuality, when you think about it, it's critical that they call them on it because Fox News is propaganda. That's not news, and I agree with you. And that's what really propped this guy up.
Yes.
Because they are actually reporting frivolous, bad information. I mean, when you look at, I'll get a lot of my news from various locations, but I don't allow Fox to be played in my house, period.
Same here.
I just don't allow it happening because I'm not supporting anything that doesn't support me. So I tell my wife, no, I'm not watching this.
Yeah.
All right? But I would tune into other areas and say, well, they're not even reporting this.
No.
What General Kelly said about Trump,
Right.
Fox News never reported it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm saying, come on, dude. Well, what are you talking? I mean,
How's that fair and balanced?
Right. But when they do, they attack him.
that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. I'm going with it amazes me. So you have to look at how they react to it. So his campaign never said Trump doesn't do this. Trump is this. Trump is that. Their response was attack the source.
Right. That's what they get from Trump. Right.
Attack the source.
Right. Just like the Washington Post normally will endorse. They're afraid to endorse either candidate in case Trump wins. They don't want him mad at him. That should tell you right there that democracy under him would be dead. Would be dead. I mean, that's sad that you're you're not going to endorse a candidate. Right? We all know right from wrong. These people, the military for the most part has been apolitical, right? That they don't, generals and whatnot don't usually endorse. And this was not an endorsement. This was a warning, because Donald Trump has always said he hires the best and the smartest people. Well, why was there such a turnover in his administration with the best and smartest people? Because these were people who would not break the law for him, who would not bend the knee, who would not take an oath to him. They took the oath that they knew was to the Constitution. Right?
Yeah, I'm looking something up here, brother. I want to cut you off, but I
right.
think this is why these individuals can actually report this nonsense unfairly and be exonerated from it, or be not held accountable. Let me read this. The Fairness Doctrine of the United States Federal Communication Commission, FCC, introduced in 1949, was a policy that required the holders of the broadcast licenses both to be present controversial issues of public importance and to do so in a manner that fairly reflect differing of opinions. In 1987, watch this, the FCC abolished the Fairness Doctrine.
Wow. See, and then that's why when Fox News came along, right? But
Yes.
how do you trust the network?
You can't.
But hear me out on this thing, right? That when the voting company, that I forget the name of, when they sued them, right? And they got almost $1 billion. Fox settled, right? $1 billion because they found all the emails with the truth, the text messages from the broadcasters with the truth about the lies that they were fostering on behalf of Donald Trump, but also the truth about how they really felt about Donald Trump. These folks, the truth about how ignorant he was, how stupid he was. He has the nerve to call the vice president with a law degree stupid. But I say this because these folks know that they had to pay almost $1 billion. How do I believe someone who had to cough up that kind of money and admit that they were lying to people every day?
Because and actually there are, and I used this on one of my siblings who were debating that Fox News was legitimate, and my response was, tell me another news broadcast that who number one anchor was sued successfully, and he said, well, you shouldn't be listening to me anyway.
Right.
You shouldn't believe what I'm saying anyway.
Right.
It's just talking points.
Right.
And they lost $875 million.
Right. That's what I'm talking
You know
about.
what I mean?
Almost $1 billion.
Almost $1 billion.
Right. And some of, I mean, just, and it's not just with Donald Trump. Is the Sandy Hook, when the guy there had sued almost $1 billion, and they were saying, well, we're just entertainers. No, you're promoting yourself as people who are in the news. And then, Brother Rhodes, I mean, they're still going out saying that our brothers and sisters are eating cats and dogs, and he's still running with that lie, and they're trying to spread it to other states and other cities. I mean, this is
Again, like, it's a cult. All right, people are gonna believe what they want to believe, and I guess that's his medium. Yeah, and Fox is there just to support him, and as you said,
But
like,
not to your point. You're right. But I'm saying, if we look inside the numbers of people, and I sit there sometimes and I watch and discuss women and people that look like us, right, whose rights are on the table already. They've already come after them. They're already trying to make it more difficult for people of color to vote, for women to have health issues addressed, because I think there's a lot of ignorance on what abortion is. Abortion is not just someone going out on Saturday night having a good time and they find out 6 weeks later that they're pregnant. Abortion is health care.
I was even more educated about the services that are provided, right? It's not just, and a lot of times, you know, you're finding out now that people who have abortions, they don't want abortions, but it's required for them to live, and people have died over this Dobbs decision, and yet you see people out there talking about Donald Trump. That, you know, he's the godfather of IVF. He is
he's a protector
of women, right?
Yeah.
And he loves women, but yet he's standing there talking about Arnold Palmer's anatomy. I mean, what foolish? I mean, nothing he has said made any sense, right? And this is someone who they talking about is good for the economy, who has filed bankruptcy in his own private business 6 or 7 times.
Yeah, but Larry, what really saddens me is where how far we have dropped down as a society.
Dumbed down, not dropped down.
You know, that's what saddened me, because you know, no more than 10 or 15 years ago, that would have been completely debunked. It would have been he would have been done.
Well,
you know,
Dukakis, he ended his career riding around in a tank.
Exactly. You know, so that tells me our morals and our values have really suffered here as a nation to still be entertaining this dude. Right. All right. It also tells me that our traditions and our customs have failed us, because we have most of our government was operating on customs and tradition. Yeah. It's not a law that you go to another individual's inauguration. It's not a peaceful transformation of power. It's not a law. It should be, in my opinion. Right. All right, and so
that was the norm.
You know, it's not a law that I should know what your tax returns are. As if you're running for the office, I should know who you'll be holding to.
And your health.
Right? Exactly. It should be a part of the whole situation legally. Right. You know, and so what is this showing me is that our customs and our traditions are failing us. They're falling, and we need to actually enshrine these things into law, or we need to rethink this. But and watch us hit. Donald Trump has made it very clear, and he's telling people this, and people are just saying, "Oh, he doesn't mean it." That if he's in office, when he arrives, voting won't be necessary anymore.
He said that.
You don't have to worry about this. You know? Oh, he doesn't mean it. Yes, he does.
Absolutely.
You don't have to worry about this, because if anyone try to run against me, I'm gonna do a Putin on them.
Right.
I'm gonna actually make sure that they fall out of the sky when they're flying on a plane.
Or don't be standing next to a window.
Exactly. Because you're gonna get popped. Because remember, the Supreme Court has already said I'm immune for anything that I do in the office that I can justify as a public part of my presidency.
Exactly. You know, one of the commentators I was watching the other day, and it really stuck with me when he said, you know, Vice President Harris has to be flawless in what she does. And all Donald Trump has to do is be lawless.
Yeah.
She has to be flawless.
He has to be lawless.
Yeah. I mean, like you said,
that's a very profound commentary. Right. I'm telling you, that's a very profound commentary.
Convicted felon. Convicted felon.
Yeah.
A convicted felon is the leading candidate to be the next president
for the quote unquote party of law and order.
Right. And to be endorsed by law enforcement.
Yeah.
Or to be endorsed, or not to endorse anyone because you don't want to offend him, which was what the Wall Street Journal did the other day.
Right.
I'm not going to. I mean, you traditionally, I'm not going to endorse anyone. Right. You know. So again, these are the white billionaires circling the wagons.
Jeff Bezos, Amazon,
to protect their empires. All right. And so the problem becomes for us as a people. You know. You have this individual who's running on behalf of
billionaires,
billionaires, an individual who's running on behalf of the poor people. But yet, we have an element of our people who are going to sit back and say, I'm not going to participate.
Right. And to that point, these reason why
that's the issue.
These billionaires and millionaires know, because they know they can manipulate Donald Trump with flattery and money, right? I mean, he's out there selling Bibles and watches and sneakers and stuff, right? And so they know that their interests will be served by him, right? As long as they keep feeding him money. Where most presidents would not, Republican or Democrat, would not cross that third rail. They know everything with him is contractual.
But why are we giving him so much leeway, though? Why is there such a difference between how they report on Trump opposed to how they're reporting on
race is a factor.
Harris and everybody else?
Race is a factor. Let's be clear.
Yes.
Racism.
That's always a fact in America,
Yes.
Doc.
And now she's got the race and gender. Right?
Yeah,
But people
yeah.
saying, because I had one lady saying, she was saying, well, you know, we can't have a woman as president because women are very emotional and they could start a war. And
Well, a woman hasn't started a war at all.
every
started
war
wars?
is started by a man.
Wait, what are you talking about?
The guy pushed back. He says, well, you know, every war that was started by a man. And she's like the deer in the headlight. Like, this is just how cultified you are.
Oh, man. That's a good one.
Because I was gonna say her response was, "Well, it's probably because a woman, it was behind because of
The
a
wife
woman."
told him to do it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like I said, Donald Trump is just one person, but the fact that there are tens of millions of people in this country that is making this race even competitive. I'm not saying
yes.
it should not be competitive,
But the fact that it's
there's a
this close.
disqualifier. And that, you know, when he said that, you know, the terrorists are going to be attacks on these countries sending everything here, we don't make much in this country anymore, right?
Yeah.
So who's going to pay that? People don't understand how a tariff works. It's a tax on you. Right?
He's telling them, I'm going to tax you.
But didn't he also say that Mexico was going to pay for this wall?
Well, yeah.
And you know, he's telling you that I'm going to tax you. And I was listening to a piece that he was saying the other day. I listened to a report where he said that when he gets in, he's going to automatically drop the interest rate. And I'm saying to myself, this dude doesn't know how the system works. You know what I mean? This dude has not a clue how the system works.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, the Fed chair doesn't make a unilateral a decision in a vacuum about the interest rates. There's a process. There's a board of people, deputy chairs, that come on board and say, these are things that are happening in our regions, and yes, we should do this, and no, we should not. He doesn't make that decision unilaterally.
But this is why he has been in bankruptcy so many times, because those are the type of decisions that he makes. Right?
Yeah.
They're not informative decisions, and he's playing on people's lack of intelligence and understanding that somehow he can run this like he run his business. It's not like he's been there for 4 years. So people have already seen what he hasn't done, right? The economy was not doing well under Donald Trump. In fact, the economy was shut down because of Donald Trump, because he said COVID was just a cold, and he wanted to deny it because politically it didn't make him look good. But the other piece too, Dr. Bradley, and I know you are a veteran, how can anyone who has worn the uniform or has had a loved one with you, like I said, some give some and some give all, to be a military person and hear how he disparages them and calls them losers and suckers, and then didn't even want to get his hair wet, acknowledging them when he was overseas. And you know, General Kelly talks about that. I mean, his son died. I would have resigned that day.
Well, Larry, you know, and my response to that is fear. Fear is the reason why some military men will actually do it. Fear as it relates to losing my position. America is getting blacker and browner on a daily basis. That is really that is the real energy behind this movement.
Yes.
You know, as it relates to MAGA. That's the energy behind it.
He's tapped into it.
He's tapped right into it. There's a fear that if we don't take the Hitler approach,
right,
and do an encampment here, you know, and concentration camps, and get these people out of here,
true.
I am not going to be a member of the ruling group in about 20 years. My children will not benefit from being a member of the ruling group as I did. So let's get it real. Racism was beneficial for some people.
Yes.
Okay, let's be very honest about it. And until we actually can really be real with that, we can't begin to solve the problem. If you're a young white, if you are in our age group as a white male, I did well. You know, I'm not me. I'm saying as a white man. All right, but so that's the real deal. I'm losing that. You know, and that's why I can turn my back on all these atrocities, all this stupidity, what he's saying, what he's doing, because I'm afraid that I'm losing my power.
I would just say that again, like historically, like when this country was founded, they started with indentured servants. All right, and whiteness did not become a thing because, again, if you look at the history of Europeans, they enslaved each other, they attacked each other, and the commonality is like when they came over here, they're like, well, oh wow, we have now a way to be able to document or label people as quote unquote slaves, just naturally based on their skin color. And so what the rich white people that were ruling did was like, okay, we're going to create this permanent rift between these people and make sure that the whites and black, the poor blacks and the poor whites are always fighting, and we're just going to keep control of everything. Because in this country, the idea that you have private prisons in a democracy, it just still blows my mind.
Yeah. Well, see, so we have to also look at, when you're trying to understand America, in my opinion, this is just Dr. Bradley speaking, you got to understand where these individuals who are so-called a part of the ruling class come from, what conditions were they under when they left their home.
Yeah.
They didn't have land.
Yeah.
Their land, it was taken by the king and given to a nobleman.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So there were, there were peasants. They were actually working the land,
They were sharecropping.
Exactly. And so what ended up happening when they got to America, and America started, in my opinion, the biggest, affirmative action plan was the Homestead Act. Yeah, was the Homestead Act.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so when they got here, they got all this land. So now the path to riches and aristocracy is land ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how it's built. No. And so, now I got this land. How do I actually make it produce cash?
And the thing is, you got to understand that they were also given like the protection of the British soldiers, quote unquote, against the Native Americans, which they could not enslave. All right, and they had their people, which were indentured servants. They were slaves for 7 to 8 years, and afterwards they left, and then they were on their own. They didn't own any property or what have you, but they were still, again, a lower class of people, and they were poor. And the difference is when they started bringing in African slaves, is that they could make them a lifetime intergenerational slaves. Like now your kids are going to be my slaves permanently for life. Your property, exactly. So it was brought on a whole nother level.
But to that point, right, when they could bring as many of us as they could here,
absolutely, yes.
There was no limit. There was no borders, right? There was no let's stop this madness, right? This doesn't make any sense. But now that people can come here free, the welcome mat is pulled away.
Well, that's one side of it. The other side, just to go back to what he's saying, is that what strikes me as being odd is that when I hear white folks say that black people are lazy, so let me, you know what I mean? So and I chuckle about everything. So let me process this.
Yes.
You go all the way over to Africa, and bring these lazy people back over here to work on land that you already here, and you're not lazy that you can work.
And someone said it. I was watching, and they said, "Okay, if you take all of these immigrants and take them out, who is going to harvest the food that we eat in this country? Because a lot of these folks who produce, they have to bring in people. They get these temporary visas, right? This working visas to come here. I know out near where I live, there's a farm, and every summer I see all these folks, and I know they're not locals, right? You know what I'm talking about, Rose, right?
Yes, I do.
Right down.
Yes.
And I'm like, wow, these folks are oblivious to what these folks are providing for them. They go inside and they pick their nice groceries that have been cleaned and washed and for them by these folks, and they ignore. They're not the ones out there in that hot sun, right? At minimum wage jobs.
But in America, as you go back through the history, there's always people out in that hot sun, getting that produce to the people who are actually at the table eating it. You know what I mean? When you look at, and you can see an equivalency to that. Wall Street. Wall Street everything was predicated on slavery. Yes. It was free money. Right. They were insuring ships to go and get more people to bring them to different parts of the world. Everything is predicated on slavery.
You're right, gentlemen. If you can open up a business, right, or have a farm, and you can get the labor, that's your biggest cost in any business. Is labor. Is the labor cost, right? If you can get that for free, that's that generational wealth you get to build up, right?
You got 400 years of free labor.
You're already running ahead of the race, right?
Yeah, you're already running ahead of it,
and that's the part that infuriates me with folks, because I'm like, okay, It's like the stunt Donald Trump just recently when he went. They shut down the McDonald's, right? And he went in there and pretended, right?
Yes.
And the only thing that happened after that was there was an E. coli outbreak.
When you sent me that, I was like, you can't make this up, man.
Right. Everything he touches just needs to be sanitized. He goes into McDonald's and 2 days later there's an E. coli outbreak, right? So yeah, that's Donald Trump. He washed his nasty hands, right? He had not the onions, just Donald Trump.
Oh, man.
Donald Trump. I mean,
That was a good one.
And how many women, now there are more women coming out, and they, like I said, people have gotten normalizing this behavior, right? Like I said, the word salad, they try to wash it and sanitize it. Well, that's not what he really meant. That's what came out of his mouth. That's exactly what he meant.
That's what he's meant.
And even like I see some of the Muslims in some of these swing states, right? And it's sad that we have an outdated electoral where the popular vote doesn't win in this country, right? You can get
Not for your leader.
Right.
See, and that's a sad thing.
Right.
Every other office in our system,
the popular vote,
except for the president.
Right.
And that was because of John C. Calhoun and those individuals actually fighting against the idea, of having, smaller states versus bigger states and slavery, trying to maintain their slavery. And see the Confederacy, and that's the other thing that people got to understand. The idea of the Confederacy was to actually, from the Mason-Dixon line all the way down to the tip of South America, was supposed to be all the Confederate state. That's what they were moving for. That was really the push between the Mexican and the American War. It was about slavery. With Texas, the Alamo, slavery. Texas didn't want it. Texas was like, no, dog, it's not happening, because the Mexicans saw it. I know where you're going, which leads me to another point. You got to be very careful of Mexico if he wins. Because what Putin did to Ukraine, those things that make you go,
Right. They don't recognize borders. Dictators don't recognize borders. Right. And you bring up a very good point. But this is what I said, when we talk about it in this totality, I think in some ways, if Donald Trump wins, we may see that next civil war. Because I know I will not. There's no.
Well, if he loses, we're definitely gonna see it.
Yeah.
Well, I personally think we're already in it.
Yeah.
We are.
I just don't think it's bloody yet.
Yeah.
I think in terms of ideology, I think in terms of position, America is just as divided as it was before the Civil War.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I see it happening. I think that there are people who are ready to go to the bloody side, especially white men, because they feel that they have more to lose. They do not have the authority, because of the numbers. Because you have to understand about a democracy. A democracy runs off of numbers. You know what I mean? That was the issue about the Electoral College. They kind of positioned it as, well, it's going to create guardrails to make sure that the idiots don't get into office. But in actuality, it didn't do that, because the parties began to kill those guardrails. But the democracy, the majority wins. So when you're looking at your birth rate, if your birth rate is being outpaced by your death rate, eventually your representation in society is going to decrease.
Well,
that's the problem. That's the problem.
What's scary about what you said and not what you said in its context, it had me thinking here for a second. You're absolutely right when you said that we're already in that civil war, it just hasn't gotten bloody. Because I think back now with like certain rights being taken away from women and minorities about voting, right? These are things that people fought for, and then the federal government came in, and the courts recognized you cannot have this hodgepodge of, if you have a right here in this state, you have a right here, because that's what slavery was. Some states wanted slavery, some didn't want. So if you cross lines, you can now criminalize. Or if you ran away from being a slave where it was free, they could come and get you. Because the same thing now is that down in Texas, their attorney general is going in and subpoenaing women's records to find out if they want to cross state lines to get an abortion, and then try to prosecute them when they come back. So this is just a 20th century version of that type of environment.
It's a slavery issue. The same issues the behaviors that were around slavery, we're seeing around abortion. But yet still, you will have women who are voting for Donald Trump, but they won't vote down the line for Republicans.
Right.
You see, because again, and Donald Trump won white females. He won that demographics. He can possibly win it again this time because they will actually vote for him and not vote for people, other folks, because they're valuing their positioning in society more so than their rights around birth.
So, Dr. Bradley, and I want to get your opinion as well, Rose, but I heard you say earlier in the broadcast, you don't think Donald Trump. What gives you that little bit of optimism? Because I'm deeply concerned that there are enough foolish people in this country.
Oh, there are
that have to learn the hard way.
Yeah, there are enough. But I think my understanding of polls, what polls mean, how you do them, is just a snapshot of what's happening. I think there's pockets of support that the poll is not capturing.
Because the poll said Hillary was up by 16 points.
Exactly. And then we got this too. All right. So I think the fact that the poll is saying that it's even is much more dire for Trump.
Right.
I think she's going to blow his head off. Not
literally.
Not literally.
But if she did, she would be immune to the prosecution.
She's going to hand him his head.
Right.
Because I think that there's a lot of support that it's not capturing.
So that's to that point, because he tried to make it seem like the Democrats won. So if President Biden wanted to order SEAL Team 6 to take him out as a national security risk, he'd be justified.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, SEAL Team 6 may say we will not exercise that order.
Right.
Because SEAL Team 6 can say that order, that behavior is violation, is illegal.
Right.
You're not, as you know, as a cop, you're not obligated to obey illegal orders. Right. But Biden will not be prosecuted for giving that order.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So, Rose, what do you hear out on the street? What's your take in the Haitian community? I know there's a lot of fear for people, people coming and people having to go.
What scares me is the people that are coming from. People that are here, that are established, that are educated, that have a good head on their shoulders, see through the minutia. But some people that have been born here and have been indoctrinated, unfortunately, Americanized, do not see the minutia, and they actually, I'm not going to say it, but their support might not be going for. Well, what has Kamala done for us? Right. I'm like, wait a second, what has he done? Why don't you question what he's done for you? He was the president. Right. She was only vice president. She didn't have full range of power. But anyway.
Well, part of this also, brother, and I was talking to one of my siblings about this. Part of this is conditioning.
Yes.
The fact that we're asking the question. Because think about this. America has never had a female president.
Yes.
Right.
We have a black one, but not a female. And now she's black. So there's an issue around double marginality that's here. Right. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we're conditioned to be looking to a white man in a suit to tell us exactly what to do. Think about that.
Well, just think about what I said when the reporter asked a woman, and this was a woman, and she said the reason why we couldn't have a woman president because they're too emotional, they could start a war. And this is coming from a woman who would, like, when you're saying that, not realizing every war has been started by a man, right? But she somehow thinks that women are so erratic. You're right. The conditioning.
It's conditioning, and so that's a part of my prediction that I'm concerned with is that how much play with the conditioning, contribute to people's decision when they're in that booth. They say, "Well, I'm going to go with this guy because he's a guy."
Sexism definitely exists in the decision that's being made.
617-282-0685. 617-282-0685.
But we also know that moms are the.
You listen to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. We're gonna let you unleash there.
Hold on, bro. Hold on.
Listen at the Round Table with MAMLEO. Go ahead, my brother.
No, I was going to say, we all know that most home economics is controlled. The purse at home is controlled by the wife.
Well,
all right, and then
I grew up in a single family home. My mom, my dad was not in my life. He was in other people's lives, starting more lives, but he wasn't involved in my life, right? So I know I have no fear of strong. I live with 3 women, and before my mom passed, I was the only guy in the house. I felt like I was always on Survivor, right? I didn't get a vote, right? But I was never felt like, I have to take this dominant role in my home and have them be subservient to me. I just don't buy it.
And so did I. My father was a part of my life for a while, and my mother and father broke up, and he moved not too far away, but he was always near. but my mother and my older sister raised me. You know what I mean? And so I have
they did a good job.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And I have always been around strong women. You know, in fact, I gravitate. I'm married to one. I gravitate to strong women.
Right.
So it really doesn't bother me. But that's unfortunately is not the norm for men.
I think a lot of times it's the insecurity in the man, right? That they don't want to see their partner if it's a woman. Like this somehow, history is that the man has to be the head of the household. I understand that in its context, but I don't think that's practical today, right? Where, especially when it's so much like back in the day, if you married, things weren't as expensive, right? You could afford, your wife maybe stayed home and raised the children. Today, you need 2 incomes, and sometimes you need 3 or 4,
or the equivalent of it,
Right,
somewhere.
right.
But brother, as a man of Christ, I think about the whole piece around helpmaker. When Scripture said, you got to have that helpmaker. Because in today's society, without a helpmaker, men, we're just not going to do it. Because, a woman would see things differently, and she would analyze things differently. Because me as a man, especially a man from the South, if I got a table in front of me, I'm going to pick it up and throw it out of the way.
Right.
My wife was like, no, grasshopper, relax. Because there may be a snake under that table. There may be something that you're going to unleash that you may not want to unleash. So she's going to stop me from falling into that into the abyss. Right. And so we have to consult with our mate, which I do all the time. And my wife and I, we made that decision before we got married. You got 50%, I have 50%.
Right.
If we're making any issue that's going to cause a problem with our lives, we have to consult with each other.
Well, look,
you need my support, I need your support.
My wife, we discussed it, right, when we got married, and then we wanted to start a family, that financially we could afford for her to be home. That was a conversation that we had together. But that didn't mean that I was in control of the finances, right? Brother Rose know whenever I said I need to consult with my wife, right? I know what my financial value is, but it doesn't diminish that we are now we're a union, right? We're a union, right?
I got you.
It's disrespectful to her to say, "Well, I make the money, I get to decide."
Yeah.
No.
I don't do that either.
When you get together, it's one.
Exactly. Like the Bible says, 2 are better than 1. You guys are a unit now. It's not like, no, I am the boss, you're the boss. No, we're together. And then the 2 brains are going to make the better decision, supposedly, if they actually work together.
Right.
But brother, I tell you something. You have to also limit, and this is my last piece. I know we got to go. You have to also understand your weaknesses.
Right.
My weaknesses as it relates to money. I'm very repulsive. I'm very impulsive. That's what I'm looking for. I'm very impulsive. My wife is like, whoa.
Yeah.
We're not buying that because of that. But it looked pretty. Honey, we don't need it. You know what I mean? And so I have to know my weaknesses.
What he's referring to is, she says you have only 2 hands, 2 wrists.
How many more watches do you need?
She said, even one of your other watches is right twice a day.
Exactly.
So we know where she's going with that. But see, this is, like I said, is that it's sad that not more people will be honest with themselves, right? That's what makes a relationship healthy, is not controlling in that. Who wants, if I don't want to be controlled in my own home, I sure don't want to be controlled by the government.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what, but Brother Bridgeford said he agrees with you, Dr. Bradley, that he doesn't think Trump is going to win. But he's in one of those red states.
Well, I still don't think he's going to win it, though. I think there's a pool of people, pool of support that Kamala Harris has, that they are not
unknown, right? Those young women who have grown up with, and even some of the women who thought that would never, even though they weren't like as radical pro-life, right? Republican women. It was never really an issue. Like you've said it many times in the road, that the Republicans are the dog that caught the cock. And now that a right that people just took for granted is no longer available to them. Yeah. I think now it's like, well, what else are they coming for? And they're telling you they're coming for
your education.
Education is
what you can read.
Yeah.
Also, what states you have rights in, and then they want to have a national ban on some of these things, right? Where they want to enact the Comstock Act, right? That can limit things that you think, oh well, I'm in Massachusetts, abortion is legal here, and there are certain methods you won't have access to anymore because the Supreme Court is. Guess what? And because what's his name, Clarence Thomas and some of the others said, hey, we want to relook at same-sex marriage, right? The world didn't fall apart. People look, if that's not how you choose your live your life, fine. I always tell people when I was in law enforcement, I'm not the morals police. I don't get to decide what consenting adults decide to do in their bedroom. And the Republicans really were the party that was less government. Now this overreach.
Well, brother, I'm just telling you. We got 1 minute.
No.
I'm telling you, brother. If you're sitting in Massachusetts today, and you're saying I'm comfortable because Donald Trump said, "Well, I didn't really destroy abortion. I just put it down to the states, let the people vote on it." But then he comes back and institute a 13 or 10-week ban nationally. Your Massachusetts law doesn't matter. It's still, you can't get an abortion beyond that point because of your national law that says you can't do it, that prohibition at this particular point. So in short, what he's doing is that